Hello, all you clever porgs and Ewoks. It's Miss Angel with today's lesson on evaluating variable expressions. So grab a piece of paper and something to write with, and we're going to get started with our warm-up. Okay, so if you're following along, we're going to go ahead and warm up with a brief review on the order of operations. So for number one, I would like you to write down the expression 4 times the group of 3 minus 5 plus 6 divided by negative 3. Remember, in algebra, we end up using parentheses to represent multiplication and fraction bars to represent division. So we're getting used to seeing that in these types of expressions. For number 2, you're going to write down 7 minus 5 times the group of negative 3 minus 1 plus 2 times negative 7, again, using parentheses to show the multiplication here, minus 8 divided by 4. So again, in both of these, we have quotients using fraction bars. We have some products using parentheses. Feel free to pause the video if you need to write these down. Now, the way that this will work is that you can pause the video before we go over it, and then you can unpause it and we'll go through. Same thing with number 2. So if you'd like to get started on number 1, go ahead and pause the video now. All right, now that you have attempted it and you have unpaused, let's go through number 1. So the order of operations starts with anything inside of a group. And a group means you're going to have addition or subtraction inside of parentheses. So looking at number 1 here, I see 4 times the group of 3 minus 5. So that's the math that I'm going to do first. So 3 minus 5. If I count back from 3 5 times, I would go 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2. So 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And then you just kind of bring down the rest of the expression, right? We're not simplifying anything else. All we're doing is simplifying that group. So groups come first. We don't have any exponents or powers. So now we're going to simplify all products and all quotients. Products meaning multiplication, which we again use with parentheses, and quotients with our fraction bar. So I do see a product here of 4 times negative 2. And again, remember, a positive times a negative will result in a negative 8. And over here, 6 divided by negative 3, again, a positive divided by a negative would be a negative 2. Now notice that I do put the negative inside of parentheses. If you don't do that, you may confuse it for a subtraction sign. So whenever you have a negative inside of the expression, you might want to put parentheses around it. Not so much a problem here with negative 8. All right, so now that I've simplified my groups, I've simplified my products and my quotients, I'm just left with integers, negative 8 plus negative 2. Now, some of you might want to change this into subtraction, but when both integers are negative, think of it as you're just totaling up negatives. If I have 8 negatives here and I add 2 more negatives to it, I'm going to end up with a grand total of negative 10. So if that's what you got for number 1, give yourself a pat on the back. If you didn't get that for number 1, go back and see maybe where your mistake was. Did you make a mistake subtracting, dividing, etc.? Now, once you've taken a look at that mistake, go ahead and pause the video when I say now and do number 2, but make sure you're not making the same mistakes from number 1 on number 2. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, after you have unpaused, let's go ahead and make sure that we're not making the same mistakes on number 2. So first thing I'm looking for are groups. Some students think that this parentheses represents a group. That actually represents a product. So we're going to leave that one for now. And really, the only parentheses I see are right there. That's negative 3 minus 1. So if I'm thinking at negative 3 and I'm subtracting 1, I'm going back 1. I'm going to negative 4. So this simplifies to negative 4. And then I'm just going to bring down the rest of the expression. We're simplifying this one step at a time. You'll find that it's always better to take your time, keep your work organized, than to try to go too quickly. All right, now we're going to simplify all products and all quotients. So I look at this and I look at 7 minus 5. A lot of students will want to do that first. But why would I do that first? That's subtraction. We know that comes last. Let's do all the multiplication and division next. So here we're going to multiply 5 times negative 4, 2 times negative 7, and then we're going to divide 8 by 4. So 5 times negative 4, a positive 5 times a negative 4 is a negative 20. And because that term is in our expression. I am putting parentheses around it to separate it from the subtraction symbols. 2 times -7 is -14. Again, because it's a negative term, I'm putting it in parentheses so that I don't confuse that with a subtraction sign. And 8 divided by 2, or 8 divided by 4 is just 2. Now I'm going to bring down the rest of the expression. So now the expression is 7 minus -20 plus -14 minus 2. Notice how I no longer have any multiplication, I no longer have any division, and I no longer have any groups. I'm just left with individual integers. Now there's something here that I don't like to see. I don't really like to see this subtracting a negative because that to me doesn't make sense. Like we don't say what's 2 minus -2. We change that and we can exchange this into an equivalent addition. So I can actually think of that as that's not 7 minus -20, that's 7 plus 20. And that math tends to be a little bit easier. Now let's move from left to right. So 7 plus 20, well, that's a lot easier than trying to think of it as subtracting negative. That's just 27. Let's bring down the rest of the expression. Plus -14 minus 2. Again, because 27 isn't negative, it might be easier to understand if we change this adding a -14 to subtracting 14. Like 27 minus 14 makes a lot more sense than 27 plus -14. So let's see, 27 minus 14. Well, 27 minus 10 is 17, minus 4 more is 13. So this simplifies to 13. Do I believe that? 13 plus 14, 27, yes. And that just leaves us with 13 minus 2, which is 11. 11, give yourself a pat on the back if you got that right. That is the end of our warm-up. Now we're going to go into some notes on evaluating variable expressions.